Hello, everyone. I'm Roger Michalski, publisher of Eagle Financial Publications. And if you watched the first video, it was just me and George and had a great conversation. And now we're going to meet the rest of George Gilder's team. So I'm first going to talk to Richard Vigilante. Richard, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Very glad to be here. Glad to be here with the team.
Yeah, so Richard, give us a little background. You've been working with George for a long time. Tell us your role with the within the newsletters and a little bit background about you and George.
Sure. Well, I've been collaborating with George one way or another for 40 years, and I've edited most of his books, and we just have a great friendship. And the so the Gilder Technology Report. So we have a team. This is because these are letters about technology. We need deep research and we need deep knowledge across the industry. And so there's George, of course, who is pioneered the whole notion of technology paradigms and identifying the key elements that are really going to decide which way the technology goes in the future. But on our team, we have two other guys who also are longtime associates of George. They each have their How I Met George stories. And those two guys are Steve Waite, who has 30 years of Wall Street experience, has written several books on technology investment, is a world-leading expert in one of the technologies that we think is going to dominate the next 20 to 30 years, which is 2D single atom thickness materials. And he also plays guitar. And real theme for us, because John plays guitar. John's written a book about guitars, and what I've learned working with Steve and John is the whole notion of a band, right? And we work together like a band. We do a certain amount of jamming, and
I just collect guitars, but I can't play them.
Really, we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah.
So you want to talk to Steve for a bit, because I just introduced him, or you want me to introduce John?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, yeah, let's just roll with Steve. So yeah, Steve, give us a little bit of background about yourself and how you hooked up with
so something really magical happened in the 80s when I was at Morgan Stanley. I was an assistant for the chief economist, John Paulus, and the secretary said, "Steve, you got a call." And I said, "Who is it?" "George Gilder's on the line." I'm like, "Come on, you're kidding me. George Gilder isn't calling me." No, really. I thought my boss was playing a prank on me, right? Because we used to read George in the Wall Street Journal, and I was a big fan. And I picked up the phone, and it was George, and he had some requests for some data, and I said I'd be happy to get it to him, and I got it to him. He was working on the Spirit of Enterprise, and I was doing high yield bond research at Morgan Stanley, and I actually got hired away by a guy named Michael Milken, who George had written about. And George was profiled in the book I was working on with Milken called Portraits of the American Dream. And George and I have just stayed in contact since the mid-'80s, since we met. And he was a big inspiration for my book, Quantum Investing, which came out during the bear market of 2001. And I had taken George's investment themes and used them while I was managing money on Wall Street to great effect, had great success with them. And I wrote a book called Venture Investing in Science. I was working with a venture capitalist on Wall Street, and George loved it. And we ended up hooking up a couple of years, about 3.5 years ago now. And we've been working on these newsletters together. And I think it's been a great fit for my skill set. And it's been an honor to work with George. And Richard and John are just fantastic colleagues, and I couldn't be happier about it.
All right. It's great. Well, Richard, you want to introduce John?
John, both Steve and John are so incredibly accomplished. It's kind of amazing. John is among other things our Mr. Chips. He is himself a veteran of the semiconductor industry. Today, still consults with some of the leading companies at the highest level. He wrote the book, Surviving the ASIC Experience. ASIC is application-specific integrated circuits. He wrote the book called Moonshots, which is the one of our products that John's work inspired. He's a serial entrepreneur, and as we speak, he's in the throes of launching a company that uses artificial intelligence to do drug discovery. And yet he also writes the newsletter you're going to get, which is kind of amazing to me. John?
Thank you, Richard. I mean, it's a true pleasure and an honor to be part of this team, this band, as Steve likes to call it. Yeah, my introduction to George goes back a ways through actually one of George's mentors, and that's Caltech's Carver Mead.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Carver, by the way, is the one who defined Moore's Law. He was there back in the day in 1965 when they were imagining what the semiconductor industry could be, and then they progressed to go on and actually create it. So Carver is just a legend, a sweet fellow, very inspiring, of course, and he's had no small influence on George. But it was Carver who really introduced me to George through George's book, Silicon Eye, which had a thing or two to do with Carver's work. And so I became a fan, started just reading everything I could lay my hands on, and George just became a great hero. And his thinking and writing, of course, got under my skin and influenced the book Moonshots that I subsequently did in 18. And I sent that book to George. He was actually the first person I sent it to, thanking him for what I'm sure he would have recognized as his fingerprints, at least intellectually, on that book. And then as 2020 approached, it occurred to me that this was going to be first of all, 2020, what a great sounding year. It was a 50-year anniversary of Alvin Toffler's Future Shock. Your readers will remember that one. And so this presented an opportunity to do a look back on the last 50 years of this legacy and then look ahead to the next 50 years. And of course, George had to be a part of that, as did Carver. And the way they each found their ways into that book, which is called Aftershock, was through a session that we did at Caltech that culminated in a 2.5-hour video that's posted online now. That really did set the stage for much of what would follow. And consequently, George asked me to join his team. And I could not have been more honored. And what a delight to meet Richard and, of course, Steve. Steve and I, of course, are brothers separated at birth. But thankfully, George, we've found each other. Yeah. So it really is a marvelous experience. Thank you, George.
Well, thank you. It was an amazing moment for me when you were willing to enlist, and it really made the whole company fly. I'll tell you, it made it an eagle.
Well, yeah, well, it was great. You know, I think everybody can see, you know, George has created this, you know, assembled this great team, and it's a big team effort with unbelievable experience. Just the background all these guys have, and you put them together. As I said, you know, got the band together, and maybe I can be part of that band now. I always wish I could sing, but I can't. But I'm really not a good singer, so I don't know.
Oh gosh.
I'll have to learn how to play good drums or something. It seems to be but we're looking to, you know, get this team and the band together for these newsletters. You know, we're so thrilled to have them at Eagle now. Very, very excited about it. And in the next couple of videos, we're actually going to dive into the products next. But first, I wanted you to meet the team and meet all the expertise behind it, because it's just so amazing that I just had to share it with you. So thanks, guys, for spending a few minutes with us. And everybody, we'll see you on the next video, and we'll dive into the George Gilder technology report. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.